The wine glass shattered against the marble floor as she grabbed my uniform and ripped it apart. "You pathetic little waitress," she screamed. "I'll make sure you never work again." But she had no idea that the security cameras were rolling. My billionaire husband was watching from upstairs, and her own dark secret was about to be exposed. What you're about to hear will shock you to your core. This story has more twists than a roller coaster, and trust me, you'll never see the ending coming. Hit subscribe right now because this tale of revenge and karma will leave you speechless. Let's dive in. My name is Christina, and 3 months ago I thought I had the perfect life. I owned one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, married to Daniel, a billionaire tech entrepreneur who supported my dreams unconditionally. Our restaurant, the Golden Palm, was the kind of place where celebrities dined and business deals worth millions were made over dinner. Everything seemed perfect until those anonymous letters started arriving. The first letter came on a Tuesday morning. It was slipped under my office door, written in neat handwriting that made my blood run cold. "Your staff is suffering and you don't even care. Some of your customers are monsters and you're letting it happen. If you don't fix this, I will." At first I thought it was just a disgruntled employee or maybe someone trying to extort money from us. But then the second letter came, and the third, each one more specific and threatening than the last. The letters described incidents I had no knowledge of. Customers allegedly humiliating our waitstaff, making inappropriate comments, even threatening physical harm. But whenever I asked my managers about these incidents, they claimed everything was fine. My head of operations, Carlos, kept insisting that customer complaints were at an all-time low. Something wasn't adding up, and the mystery was driving me crazy. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to go undercover as a waitress in my own restaurant. Daniel thought I was losing my mind. "Christina, you're the owner of a multi-million-dollar establishment. Why would you pretend to be an employee?" he asked me over breakfast one morning. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something sinister happening under my nose, and the only way to find out was to experience it myself. I spent weeks preparing for my undercover mission. I practiced carrying trays, memorized the entire menu, and even took acting classes to perfect a different persona. I created a fake identity complete with references and a backstory. According to my new identity, I was Kate Morrison, a struggling college student working part-time to pay for tuition. I dyed my hair a mousy brown, wore colored contacts, and dressed in simple, unremarkable clothes. Even my own mother wouldn't have recognized me. The first few days working as a waitress were eye-opening in ways I never expected. I quickly realized how physically demanding the job was and gained a new appreciation for my hard-working staff. Most customers were polite and reasonable, but there were a few who treated the waitstaff like they were invisible or worse, like they were their personal servants. Still, I hadn't encountered anything that would warrant those threatening letters. Then Jessica Patterson walked into my life. I'll never forget the first time I saw her. It was a Thursday evening, and the restaurant was buzzing with the usual dinner crowd. Jessica entered wearing a stunning red silk dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She had perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive jewelry that caught the light with every movement, and an aura of entitlement that preceded her like a warning signal. She was accompanied by 3 other women who seemed to hang on her every word. From the moment she sat down, Jessica made it clear that she expected special treatment. She snapped her fingers to get attention, spoke in a condescending tone, and acted like the world revolved around her whims. But what struck me as odd was how she seemed particularly interested in me. While her friends chatted about their usual gossip, Jessica kept staring at me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "You're new here, aren't you?" she asked when I approached their table to take their order. Her voice had a strange quality to it, like she was studying me rather than making casual conversation. "Yes, ma'am. I started working here recently," I replied, maintaining my fake identity. "Where did you work before this?" she pressed, and I noticed her friends had stopped talking to listen to our conversation. I gave her the rehearsed backstory about being a college student, but Jessica's expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. Throughout the evening, she continued to ask probing questions about my background, my family, and my living situation. It felt more like an interrogation than casual small talk. Over the next few weeks, Jessica became a regular customer, and each visit became more uncomfortable than the last. She would request specifically to be seated in my section, and then proceed to make my life miserable. She'd order complicated modifications to menu items, send food back multiple times for imaginary problems, and constantly find fault with my service. But the strangest part was that she seemed to be testing me, pushing my boundaries to see how I would react. Other staff members began to warn me about Jessica. "She's trouble," said Maria, one of our veteran waitresses. "She's been coming here for months, and she has this way of making people quit. 3 girls have left because of her." When I asked Maria why management didn't do something about it, she just shrugged. "She spends a lot of money here, and she knows people. Management won't touch her." This was exactly the kind of toxic behavior described in those anonymous letters. I started to suspect that Jessica might be connected to the harassment campaign against my restaurant, but I needed more evidence, and I was determined to get it. The breakthrough came during my 4th week undercover. I was cleaning tables near the back of the restaurant when I overheard Jessica talking on her phone. She was standing near the ladies' restroom, speaking in hushed tones, but her voice carried just enough for me to catch fragments of the conversation. "The plan is working perfectly," she was saying. "I've already gotten 3 of them to quit, and the new girl is about to break. Once I destroy the staff morale completely, the whole place will fall apart." There was a pause, and then she laughed coldly. "Trust me, by the time I'm done with this place, they'll be begging to sell. And when that happens, we'll be ready to swoop in and buy it for pennies on the dollar." My heart pounded as I realized what I was hearing. Jessica wasn't just a difficult customer. She was actively sabotaging my restaurant as part of some larger scheme. But who was she working with? And why target my business specifically? I started paying closer attention to Jessica's behavior and noticed patterns I had missed before. She would take photos of the restaurant's interior, ask detailed questions about our operating procedures, and even tried to peek into restricted areas when she thought no one was looking. She was gathering intelligence for someone. The situation escalated dramatically the following week. Jessica arrived with her usual entourage, but this time she seemed different. More aggressive, more confident, like she was ready to make her final move. She ordered expensive wine and began making increasingly unreasonable demands. When I brought her the wine, she deliberately knocked the glass over, spilling the deep purple liquid across the white tablecloth and onto her red dress. "You clumsy idiot!" she screamed, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "Look what you've done to my dress. This is a designer original worth more than you make in a year." I knew she had spilled the wine intentionally. I had seen her do it, but I maintained my composure and apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. Let me help you clean that up." "Don't you dare touch me," she snapped, standing up dramatically. "Do you have any idea how much this dress cost?" "You're going to pay for this, you pathetic little waitress." The entire restaurant had gone quiet, with all eyes on our confrontation. I could feel the other customers staring, some with sympathy, others with the kind of morbid curiosity people have when watching a train wreck. My fellow staff members looked terrified, knowing they could just as easily be in my position. "Ma'am, I understand you're upset," I said calmly. "Let me get the manager, and I'm sure we can work something out." But Jessica wasn't interested in reasonable solutions. She was enjoying the spectacle too much. "Work something out?" She laughed harshly. "You think your pathetic manager can fix this? I want you fired, right now, and I want compensation for my ruined dress." That's when Jessica made her fatal mistake. In her rage, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "You know what? I'm calling the owner of this place right now. I have connections, and when I tell them about your incompetence, you'll never work in this city again." She started dialing, and I realized she was about to discover something that would blow her cover wide open. But before she could make the call, she grabbed the front of my uniform and yanked hard, tearing the fabric. "Look at you," she snarled, "dressed in rags, just like the worthless nobody you are." The humiliation was designed to break me, to make me cry or fight back, giving her more ammunition to use against the restaurant. But I had something Jessica didn't know about. My husband Daniel was upstairs in the private office, watching everything unfold through the security cameras. As Jessica continued her verbal assault, I noticed a familiar figure descending the main staircase. Daniel had seen enough, and he was coming to my rescue. But Jessica was so caught up in her performance that she didn't notice him approaching. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of place this is," Jessica was saying, "hiring incompetent staff, letting them assault customers. By the time I'm done with you people, this restaurant will be finished. Is there a problem here?" Daniel's voice cut through Jessica's rant like a knife. Jessica spun around, clearly annoyed at the interruption. "And who are you supposed to be? Another worthless employee?" Daniel smiled calmly, but I could see the steel in his eyes. "Actually, I'm Daniel Stone, and this is my wife, Christina Stone. She owns this restaurant." The color drained from Jessica's face as she looked back and forth between Daniel and me. "Your wife? But she's just the owner," Daniel finished. "And from what I've been watching on the security cameras, you've just committed assault against her." Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The confident, entitled persona she had maintained for weeks crumbled in an instant. "There must be some mistake," she stammered. "I didn't know. I thought she was just..." "Just what?" I asked, finally dropping my fake accent and standing up straighter. "Just someone you could abuse because you thought she was powerless?" The restaurant erupted in whispers as the other diners realized what was happening. Jessica's friends looked mortified, clearly having no idea about her true intentions. But Jessica herself was far from finished. As the initial shock wore off, her expression hardened with a different kind of desperation. "You think you're so clever," she hissed, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "But I know things about you, Christina Stone. I know about your business dealings, your finances, your marriage. Cross me and I'll destroy everything you've built." That's when I realized Jessica's involvement went much deeper than simple customer harassment. "Who are you really working for?" I demanded. Jessica's laugh was cold and bitter. "Someone who has a very good reason to want this place to fail. Someone who knows that revenge is a dish best served cold." Before she could say more, Daniel stepped forward with his phone in hand. "I've been recording this entire conversation, Jessica. And I think the police will be very interested to hear about your extortion attempts and harassment campaign." Jessica's facade finally cracked completely. "You don't understand," she said desperately. "This place destroyed my life. Your business partner, Robert Martinez, he was my husband. He left me for his secretary and made sure I got nothing in the divorce. Nothing! While you two lived in luxury, I lost everything." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. Robert Martinez was indeed my business partner, though he had sold his shares in the restaurant 2 years ago after his messy divorce. Jessica was his ex-wife, and she had been systematically trying to destroy the business as revenge against him. "So you decided to take it out on innocent employees?" I asked. "You terrorized my staff, tried to ruin my reputation, all because you couldn't move on from your divorce?" "I wanted him to hurt the way he made me hurt," Jessica admitted, tears streaming down her face. "But he sold his shares and moved on like nothing happened, so I decided to destroy what he had helped build." By this time, the police had arrived, summoned by Daniel during Jessica's confession. As they led her away in handcuffs, she turned back one last time. "You may have won tonight, Christina, but this isn't over. I have lawyers, connections. I'll be back." But Jessica was wrong. The evidence we had gathered during my undercover operation, combined with her recorded confession, was more than enough to ensure she faced serious consequences. She was charged with harassment, extortion, criminal mischief, and several other crimes. Her wealthy friends abandoned her, her social standing crumbled, and she ultimately served 18 months in prison. The most satisfying part wasn't Jessica's downfall, though. It was the positive changes that came from my undercover experience. I implemented new policies to protect my staff from abusive customers, improved working conditions, and created a support system for employees who faced harassment. The anonymous letters stopped coming, and staff morale reached an all-time high. Maria, the veteran waitress who had warned me about Jessica, was promoted to assistant manager. She told me later that my willingness to work alongside them had completely changed how the staff viewed management. "You didn't just talk about caring for your employees," she said. "You proved it." Daniel was proud of how I had handled the situation, though he still teases me about my acting skills. "Next time you decide to go undercover," he jokes, "at least let me know so I can watch the security footage in real time." It was better than any movie. The restaurant thrived in the months following Jessica's arrest. Word spread about how I had gone undercover to protect my employees, and we received more positive press than we had ever imagined. Customers started treating our staff with noticeably more respect, and several other restaurant owners reached out to learn about our anti-harassment policies. But the most important lesson I learned had nothing to do with business success. It was about the power of empathy and the importance of understanding the experiences of the people who work for you. Those few weeks as a waitress taught me more about leadership than any business school ever could. As I reflect on that night when Jessica tore my dress and tried to humiliate me, I realized she did me a favor. She showed me what true strength looks like. Not the kind that comes from money or status, but the kind that comes from treating everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their position in life. Jessica thought she was destroying a powerless waitress, but she ended up revealing her own powerlessness. She had money, connections, and social status, but she lacked the one thing that really matters: character. In the end, karma didn't just find her, it completely overwhelmed her. The golden rule has never been more relevant. Treat others as you want to be treated, because you never know when that nobody you're being cruel to might actually be somebody very important. And even if they're not, they still deserve your respect simply because they're human. And that's how one night of undercover work taught me the most valuable lesson of my business career. If this story showed you the power of treating everyone with respect, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. What would you have done in Jessica's situation? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories, and I'll see you in the next video. Can you believe Jessica thought she was the hunter when she was actually the prey? Trust me, my next story will blow your mind even more.